I'm Dave Nicol, and I have VetX communities where we help young vets learn how to cope with a life and thrive with life in veterinary medicine, and we help the older vets learn how to cope with the young vets, basically, and we help the two come together.
And you had a pack talk today. How did that go, and what were you talking about?
Yeah, really good. So the session was about unlocking the power of the next generation, and really it was a backdoor conversation about leadership. So I think the audience maybe show up thinking, like, I'm going to tell them how all these tools and tricks that they can use to suddenly get millennials to engage in their practices, and we did. But there's kind of the flip is on the audience a little bit in that. The whole lecture is about how we as leaders, as senior leaders, and as the custodians of the next generation of this profession have to be better at managing this talent and leading this talent, and how that really is what's going to make one of the big differences. So we hit on, like, there's the common riders of the apocalypse everyone likes to blame for why we're where we are, and that our universities aren't bringing the right people in, and that millennials just don't want to do any hard work, and that women have babies, and that the corporates are taking over, and that's changing things, and vets don't want to work in that model. And I say, well, maybe there's elements of truth and there's opportunities and challenges for us to work with inside of all of those categories. Really, it comes down to our leadership and the way that we create culture that engage our teams and help them stay happy within the profession. And I want it to really steer us away from the conversation that seems to say, let's open more vet schools, because whilst there may be some truth in that, it's not the solution to the problem. That, if we change nothing else, it's just going to have more people coming into the profession being treated less than the way that we're required to be treated. Their needs not getting met, and so we're just going to burn more people out if we do that. So our biggest opportunity to retain the talent within the industry, and our only opportunity, is to look at our leadership skills within the systems that we have.
And do you think young vets get too much stick? I'm going to throw in the word snowflake.
Yep. I think that perhaps there are generational things that are going on that are somewhat out of our control. So I can no more change the attributes that are being applied to millennials any more than they can change what are being applied to boomers. But we mustn't be thinking in terms of groups of people. We must be thinking in terms of individuals. Like, we fix this by being better. Every one of us can improve our own game at how we engage with and manage the next generation of talent. And if each of us worries about what we are doing and how we are interacting and what we need to learn about our team members, then we change our own game. That's how whole-scale change can happen. It's only by changing fundamentally at grassroots that wider-scale changes will happen. It just so happens we're just not very good at grassroots at this leadership thing. We never have, in all honesty. It's just that as a generation, boomers to Xers, like the Gen X, which is my generation, we put up with it, okay? But I don't look back and think that I was happy. I think probably I was a couple of times close to burnout. And I think the millennials struggle a little bit more with some of the key coping skills that they don't seem to have had instilled in them because we protect them as a generation. But as individuals, there's no reason they can't learn those things. Equally, as business owners and practice owners, there's no reason we can't start adapting our systems in order to cope with these. I mean, there's so much technological change coming just around the corner from us now that we have to get into change modes and adaptation modes, or I think we're kind of in trouble. And that goes for whether we're working with millennials or we're working with the technology of the future.
And what sort of problems do you see developing if this culture gap between the new and the older generation is allowed to widen?
I don't think it's a question of developing. I think it's here and it's now. When you look at the data that we have available, Royal College surveys are showing north of 50% of people are saying this profession has not lived up to the expectation they had when they joined vet school. I've done my own surveys at BSAVA saying that 64% of graduates would not recommend this profession to any colleagues who are thinking about joining it, or young people who are thinking about joining it. The market is speaking. Like, we shouldn't be thinking about like what's going to be happening. We're seeing it playing out. The reason we're not filling seats in our practices is this is happening here and now. So we're at the bad place, right? And I think now we have to think about solutions, okay? Because this is the bad place. Like, not filling 17% of your vacancies, as has been reported again as a statistic, that's a bad place to be. Now that's a stressful place. Your business is not going to grow well if you can't fill those vacancies. So we need to start thinking about solutions to the challenges.
And just quickly, what are those solutions?
That's quickly. Okay, so that depends on the individual, but I think the primary one I would focus on, and I think what I focus on in my clinic, is leadership. Be better at creating a culture where people want to show up and they're engaged, and you will attract more talent. You will not be waiting 6 or 12 months for a vet if you build a culture where people are rewarded, they're recognized, and they get to do the job they were trained to do in a way that doesn't break them.
And a question I'm asking everyone is, what's great about being a vet?
I've had a wonderful time in this profession. It was great for me about being a vet was the number of people I got to meet and form strong, meaningful relationships, and that was clients. Being Uncle Dave to so many pets was an amazing thing. And then as a leader, becoming somebody who helps groups of people to grow and to flourish, that gives me the same joy. So I think for me, and I think people would take a lot more joy at this profession if they learned how to manage and work with people a lot better. And that means clients and it means colleagues.